as Christians, how are we supposed to approach money? You know, Jesus talked about love all the time, and he talks about money all the time. And it's not something that we can avoid. We can't just say, well, I'm going to set money over here, and I'm just going to focus on everything over here that's holy, right? Money is part of our everyday lives. And so, you know, I always think of money is it a means or is it an end? And so often I think people are viewing money as their end goal. They do their job because of the paycheck on the end. You know, their strive is to make a certain amount of money or see their portfolio get to a certain size. And you know, those aren't necessarily bad things, but when you see money as your end goal, at some point you kind of miss on what's the ultimate purpose? What's the goal? What are we giving, leaving, spending? You know, what is the kingdom purpose that we're pushing forward? Versus recognizing that really money is it's a means, right? Money is going to be part of our jobs. Money is going to be part of how we feed our families, but it's not the end goal. The end goal has to be something other than just growing. So much of what we do at the beginning of a financial planning process is helping people define and understand what are their goals, right? Because it's one thing to say, again, that you want your portfolio to be a certain dollar amount. It's a whole nother thing to say, well, I want to make sure that my grandchildren can go to college, or I want to make sure that I can, you know, leave a sizable, you know, a charitable gift to my church when I pass away one day. As Christians, there is that sense of stewarding resources means just giving more. And I think we miss it because I think stewarding resources is not just giving more, it's how do we save money? How do we spend money? How do we view money? How do we talk about money, right? And I think there's a much bigger picture to what the stewardship of resources and money actually looks like. Yeah, I think it depends on the context. I think the first thing is to recognize that it's an uncomfortable topic, right? But it's also not a topic that we can completely just put under the rug. It's something that we do need to talk about. Amongst spouses, you know, I think it's always helpful to maybe set a time in the month or in the week where you're gonna talk about it, right? So you're not bringing to your spouse like, you know, hey, what did you spend this day? But you know that, hey, at the end of the month, we have a specific time for our marriage where we're gonna talk about money. And you're prepared and you know that going into that. And you can have a conversation that honors one another. So I really do think it's important to set expectations around that and to make sure that you're creating space to talk about money in a way that is comfortable for you, for your spouse. If you're not married, then maybe it's a mentor, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a friend, but someone that you can talk openly and honestly with about it. Yeah, gosh. Well, I think Christians and non-Christians alike, I think it's there's a spectrum of how people are approaching money. It also can be viewed like so many things. It's not a bad thing. Money is a good thing, but it can definitely be twisted to be a bad thing very quickly. There's two parables that I always get back to in Scripture that really have always stood out to me. One is the parable of the talents, which is this parable or the story where it kind of gives the message that we're called to grow, steward, and multiply what we've been entrusted with, right? And that's kind of one way people view money, is just grow, steward it, grow it, multiply it. You know, the more you have, the more you'll be able to maybe give one day. And then there's also the parable of the widow's mite. And the parable of the widow's mite, where the widow, really who has little, that doesn't have much, gives everything away, even her last 2 copper coins. And as Christians, we live in this tension, right? We live in this tension where we're called to grow, store, and multiply what we've been entrusted with. But at the same time, we're called to live with open hands to give it away. So that's a tension, right? That's a tension for all Christians. How do we grow, store, and be responsible for this? And at the same time, recognize that we can't control it, that it's not just up to us, and we may be called to give it all away. It's one thing for a financial advisor or a pastor to say, you need to give X or do this. It's a whole nother thing to kind of discern and ask the Lord, what is He calling us to? And hopefully we have the humility to respond to that. And I mean, even I myself, I struggle with that at times. You know, that is a day in and day out struggle to say, Lord, what are you asking of me today? Whether it's how I raise my children, how I honor my wife, how I take care of my clients, all of that, it's day in and day out.